Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be looking at the weekly metagame breakdown for Pioneer. Yes, Pioneer on Arena, almost pretty much like 99% there. So the former Explorer format, we got Pioneer Masters this week, and we did cover the breakdown in terms of what decks are working well so far, what aren't. For best of 3, this video will be looking at the best of 1 format. As I mentioned in the earlier video, and this will apply to this as well, it's only been about 2-3 days, so the data sets are still relatively small. What this video is intending to do is give you an idea of what people are trying, what's kind of working, what's not working. Stuff like our full kind of popularity of the day, we'll need a couple days to populate everything. People are still acquiring wildcards, so these are all things that kind of factor into it. So use this more of an idea board, things that are kind of working thus far and maybe not. I will say it's not going to be covered in this video, but we got a couple comments on the last one. Is it Phoenix? Been doing really bad. Like every deck list that I've seen, best 3, best of 1, it's all sub 50%. So we're not covering it in this video. The deck lists are the same Phoenix lists that have been around forever. It's just metas maybe shifted. It's just not doing too hot, whatever reason it may be. So we'll jump into it. As always, we got the data from Untapped. Companion tool tracks user win rates, aggregates it, gives a whole bunch of cool stats. If you want to use Untapped, link is in the video description. I'll paste and timestamp all these deck lists as always, so you can copy paste to your heart's content. And then last thing before we jump in, you'll see in the top that way with the webcam, everything's inverted. We are trying to raise money for charity this month. So my intent is every penny that I make off YouTube, I am going to be donating it to a local Toronto-based food bank to help them out over the holiday season. Our goal is $800. We're at $370 thus far. So if you want to help out, just watch videos, like, comment, help get the video pushed out more. And then YouTube will pay me more that I can then donate more. So it kind of helps full circle without you having to contribute anything financially. So greatly appreciated if you can. But let's jump into it. So for this week, 13,000 games, like I said, December 10th through 13th. So only 3 days. We're going to look platinum to mythic because it's not a huge sample size otherwise. The first list is a wild one. So 4-color Omnath, Land Reanimation, Analyst, Nissa. Clearly, we all had this on our bingo cards. Legends, God deck. So we had a deck in Standard. Aftermath, Analyst, World's Soul's Rage, Nissa paired with all the Kamigawa fetches that you would sack, come into play, and then you could get them back with like these types of effects. Spelunking makes the lands come into play untapped. Then you have the Elemental package, Risen Reef, Omnath. Omnath has crazy value with all these lines coming in. You have Lumra that just reanimates a bunch of lands as well, self-mills. You have Fecund Green Shell that draws you cards, gives your team Anthem effects. Overlord helps you ramp kind of in those package. Lotus Cobra generates a whole bunch of mana. You're in pile, so you're like, why are we fitting all these cards in? But with this deck here, what you're trying to do, generate a whole bunch of mana, go crazy like that. Then you have access to, where is it in the mana base? Thought I saw the World Tree. There we go. So once you generate 10 lands, you can search your library for any number of God cards and put them into the battlefield. So you have Perforos, you have God Eternal Ronis, you have Dejiru and Hazaret. You have Clothis in here, so this gives your team haste, and then you could just Alpha Strike in. Just a wild one. Kenrith could be a mana sink to reanimate stuff. Just bunch of, this looks like someone's EDH deck that they brought to Pioneer and just goes crazy. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out in terms of some of the aggressive decks. You do have some removal early, and then Omnath can gain you a whole bunch of life, but curious to see how that plays out. Next up is Selesnya Auras, 68%. So this deck here got a notable upgrade in Glade Cover Scout, Hexproof, 1/1, meaning your opponent can't target this with anything. So only sacrifice style effects would work. So you're playing this kind of similar to the historic version, which is very strong. Light Pause, Shram in here, draw you cards. You have Sheltered by Ghosts as well as Shard Mage Rescue, protection, removal kind of effects. Light Pause gives you a tutorable effect, so you can use Alpha Authority, gives your creature hexproof, so you can protect one of your things. Cartouche can make multiple bodies, plays you around like a Liliana Edict, as well as First Strike. Evasion with Griffspoon, Vigilance, Sixth Sense draws you cards. along with the Shram, and then Rune of Substance as another way to get lifelink in terms of creatures, Audacity for a big power boost. Then go to mono red. So this is kind of Wizards Burn-esque deck. So just very aggressively slanted deck, Soul Scar, Swift Spear. They're playing Wizards Lightning, but no Gitu Lava Runner in this one. Playing some Viashinos. So your wizard count is slightly low, but not like unheard of. Searing Blood can be useful against the creature mirrors. Does have kind of a varied effect. So certain decks is going to be useless against. Like against Lotus, this card's just going to be in your hand doing nothing. You might prefer just to kind of true up Viashinos or play more overall useful cards in that sense, like that always have play. This is usually a card you maybe would have sideboard in best of 3. So a couple decks, for some reason Untap's being buggy today, so decks that have sideboards in best of 1 are giving me errors, but we'll take a look at some overly convoluted combo decks that are going to make me feel dumb, and I will try to explain them to the best possible. So with Pioneer Masters, we got the Rona Retraction Helix kind of combo-esque deck. We got Sylvan Caryatid and Retraction Helix, which we're missing, along with Oath to Nissa. This is a Legends pile. At its base value, what you're able to do is with Kinnan, Rona, so any of your 2-drops, you can use Luca's -2 to always get Atraxa, so some value there. With Rona, you can tap and tap it with all these legends. With Mox Amber, generates you extra mana, similar with Kinnan. With Retraction Helix, what you're able to do is with the Rona, you can keep bouncing the Mox Amber back to hand, recasting it, generating mana each time with Rona, because Rona would untap, so then you can bring it back to hand to generate infinite mana that way there. With Kinnan, you can basically search through your whole deck at that point. You can go Fae of Wishes for like Paradox Engine kind of effects, but you're basically able to just kind of go crazy. You can win on the spot with Fae of Wishes to get the Aether Flux Reservoir, and then with just a loop of Mox Ambers, deal 50 damage to your opponent. So that's kind of the deck there, the best kind of TLDR approach. We then go to Lotus Field. So I'm going to show a version after this, which is the Izzet version. The Izzet version is doing much better in best of 3. This like Sultai version is actually doing really poor in best of 3, but has a reasonable win rate in best of 1. So the deck itself is built around Lotus Field. What you're trying to do is tap and untap the card multiple times to generate huge amounts of mana. You can copy it with Thespian Stage to kind of get around the sack effect. With this version here, you have Strict Proctor, which can get around the sack condition. But most of the time, like in the Izzet version, you are sacrificing 2 lands to get the Lotus Field in play. The cards that let you tap and untap are things like Hidden Strings, Vizier of Tumbling Sands, Pour Over Pages. What you're trying to do is generate a whole bunch of mana, Emergent Ultimatum, get you your Omniscience, or cards like Peer into the Abyss, or Dark Petition to let you tutor for stuff. Lier can let you cast stuff from your graveyard. And then what you do is you Fae of Wishes for Approach the Second Sun, and then you cast that a couple times and you win the game there. Very click intensive. There's the Izzet version of the deck. So this one, like I said, is doing really good in best of 3. Best of 1 just doesn't have the volume of games. So this one here, similar concepts. Again, you have the Lotus Fields, dig through times, a lot of cheap interaction. Expedition Map can help you find your stuff. Anger has some removal. Artisan's Talent lets you draw a discard, kind of churning through your deck. Level 2 reduces the casting cost of your instants and sorceries, so it can generate like net positive in most instances. And then the last mode, if source of deal damage, deals that much damage, +2. There is a way, I don't know the exact like nuance of exactly 24 damage, I think it is, but lightning strikes with this would deal 5 damage each. With the, you can like Bonds of Insight them back to hand, and with Lier, cast them again from the graveyard, so there's kind of ways around with that. This one here wins predominantly through drawing your whole deck, when then wishing for Thassa's Oracle. To then just kind of trigger on the stack, you win the game. In a pinch, you can also just cast Niv and then draw a bunch of cards and ping your opponent to death. Jund Sacrifice, nothing like crazy new here, 64%. So this is the combo variant with Yurga. So Rakdos, Sacrifice with Yurga. Yurga makes all your stuff food. So a Cauldron Familiar in play, Cauldron Familiar in the graveyard, loop to deal infinite life loss. You also have Scavenger's Talent, which just kind of enables the whole combo. creating food tokens that you can sack, helping you mill into the combo, and then later with Chapter 3, even if you mill over a Yurga, you can kind of bring it all back. Cat Ovens shenanigans, a bunch of sack kind of synergies. Mayhem Devil can ping a bunch of stuff. Fable the Mirror Breaker, just doing Fable things, smoothing out your draw, making copies of like Devil, stuff like that. Shinganta Companion. Boros Burn, so similar to the kind of red burn, a little less prowessy, more burn spells. So you have Lightning Strikes, Lightning Helix, and Boros Charm. Eidolon of the Great Revels pings whenever a player casts a spell 3 CMC or less. Notably, this is going to be for both players, so you will take damage as well, so be mindful when you're kind of racing your opponent. Screaming Nemesis in this build, so makes blocking difficult. You can shock your own Nemesis to redirect the damage to shut off your opponent's life gain as well. Copy Higher Claw, full Kumanos, Bolt Waves, just a lot of burn. Burn, baby, burn. We then go to Mardu Greasefang, 63%. So this deck, previously Abzan, has moved to Mardu with access to Fear of Missing Out, letting you draw discard, giving you extra combat steps. Very easy to turn on Delirium in this deck through the incidental artifacts in the deck, enchantments, stuff like that. Proxa is your backup plan, but your predominant plan is get Parhelion into your graveyard, cast Greasefang, animate it, attack. It brings out some angels that does 13 damage. You might be able to get the FOMO line where you get an extra combat step, which is cool. Rest of the deck's just kind of interaction, Fatal Push, Bitter Trine, Torch, Vanishing Verse, all ways to have some removal, Thought Seizes for disruption, and then you have the Blood Tithe Fable package there as well. We then go to Atarka Gruul. So cards we were missing in this deck was notably the Reckless Bushwhacker. So you're going to be casting this card more often than not for its surge cost. So if you cast a spell prior to it, you get to cast this for its surge cost, so 2 mana. And then if it enters and surges page, your other creatures get +1/0 and haste on the turn. Couple ways you can enable this. Obviously, Burning Tree Emissary pays for itself in terms of mana, so you could go BTE into Bushwhacker, give everything haste. You also have plot cards in Cunning Coyote as well as Aloe Alchemist. So you get some value doing it for the turn to plot them, and then you from plot they cost 0 mana, so you can cast them and then immediately cast the Bushwhacker as well. Zurgo's another card from the recent set, just a 1 mana 2/2 creature, and then you have kind of your red aggro package with Atarka's command to overrun your creatures, be a burn kind of effect, and potentially shut off life gain. Rakdos Demons is the latest iteration of Demons, or Rakdos piles. So they keep banning stuff, and they just, as long as you have Fable, 56 other cards, you are competing. So this is leveraging Unholy Annex, Powerhouse of Standard with Archfiend the Dross, and Blade of Oni, which is also a demon. Otherwise, it's your kind of go-to Rakdos pile, bunch of removal, discard effects, Fable, Blood Tithe, you have Unstoppable Slasher, and then a Shelly in here. Notable card from the recent set is Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. This is a global effect as well, so all lands both players control tap for black mana and are swamps in addition to their other types. Notably, this makes your Mutavault tap for black mana while still being that effect. A cool trick you can do is Mutavault can activate itself to get the drain ability of Unholy Annex because it counts as a demon. With Urborg as well, when it comes into play, itself sees itself as a swamp, so you can turn one Urborg and Thoughtseize your opponent if you'd like. And then lastly, we got 5-color Niv-to-Light. So this is a deck that's probably better served in best of 3 since it's kind of weak against some of like the combo decks like Lotus, but is kind of a toolbox deck. The card that brings this together is Bring to Light. 5 mana Converge. Basically, depending on the amount of colors you spend to it, you can search your deck for its creature, instant, or sorcery, and then cast it for free. So it lets you kind of find answers to every situation. The most obvious and kind of the namesake of the deck is Niv Mizzet Reborn. 5 colors, gets you a whole bunch of cards from your deck. That's why you're playing a bunch of multicolor spells. You can also, cool line is Valky, God of Lies. You can find the Valky side, and when you cast it, it gives you the option to cast Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter. So you can kind of cheat out Tibalt, just a very strong planeswalker. A Beans deck to draw you cards. Ancient Cornucopia fixes your mana, gains you life, and kind of goes from there. And then it's just toolboxy. So like Sweepers, Combo Hate, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Catch-all Removal for colored, Sweeper in Ill-Time Explosion, Elenda as a kind of big life linker that can scale. And then you have like your just big top end effects, the Room Roaring Furnace, and then Atraxa on the top end. Very, 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 very wildcard intensive deck for this one here. That's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been liking, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for watching.